Penguin Random House Audio presents Extreme Prey by John Sandford, read for you by Richard Ferrone. Chapter 1. Bright-eyed Marlis Purdy carried a steel bucket around to the side of the garage to the rabbit hutches, which were stacked up on top of each other like Manhattan walk-ups. She paused there for a moment, considering the possibilities. A dozen New Zealand whites peered through the screened windows, their pink noses twitching and pale eyes watching the intruder, their long ears turning like radar dishes, trying to parse their immediate future. Was this dinner or death? A car went by on the gravel road on the far side of a ditch line of lavender yarrow and clumps of black-eyed Susans and purple coneflowers, throwing a cloud of dust into the late afternoon sun. Marlis turned to look. Laurie Schaefer, who lived 3 more miles out, didn't bother to wave. Marlis was a sturdy woman in her 50s, white curls clinging to her scalp like vanilla frosting. She wore rimless glasses, a homemade red-checked gingham dress, and low-topped Nikes. Short-nosed and pale, she had a small pink mouth that habitually pursed in thought or disapproval. She popped the door on one of the hutches and pulled the rabbit out by its hind feet. The animal smelled of rabbit food and rabbit poop and the pine shavings used as bedding. A 12-inch Craftsman crescent wrench, its working end rusted shut, lay on top of the hutches. Marlis stretched the rabbit over her thigh and held it tight until it stopped wriggling, then picked up the crescent wrench and whacked the rabbit on the back of the head, separating the skull from the spine. So it was death. The rabbit went limp, but a few seconds later began twitching as its nerves fired against oxygen starvation. That went on for a bit, and then the rabbit went quiet again. Some years before, Marlis had mounted a plank on the side of the garage at head height. Before mounting the board, she had driven 2 20-penny common nails through it, so that an inch of nail protruded, angling upward. Every year or so, she'd use a bastard file to sharpen up the nails. Now she positioned the bucket, with a used plastic shopping bag on the inside, under the board with the nails. She pushed the dead rabbit's feet onto the nails until the nails stuck through and, in a minute or so, had stripped the rabbit's fur, pulled off its head, and gutted it, all the unwanted parts and most of the blood draining into the plastic bag in the bucket. Not all of the blood. A dinner plate-sized blotch of old black bloodstains marred the wooden side of the garage, supplemented by new red blotches from this last butchery. She carried the bloody meat back to the house, paused to tie up the top of the plastic bag and drop it into the garbage can, and, in the kitchen, washed the meat. During the entire 5-minute process of killing and butchering the rabbit, she'd never once thought about either the animal or the process. All of that was automatic, like pulling beets or picking wax beans. Marlis's brain was consumed with other thoughts of murder. If and when, and where and how, and with what. Marlis was a woman of ordinary appearance, if seen in a supermarket or a library, dressed in homemade or Walmart dresses or slacks, a little too heavy but fighting it, white-haired, ruddy-faced. In her heart, though, she housed a rage that knew no bounds. The rage fully possessed her at times, and she might be seen sitting in her truck at a stoplight, pounding the steering wheel with the palms of her hands, or walking through the noodle aisle at the supermarket with a teeth-baring snarl. She had frightened strangers who might look at her and catch the flames of rage, quickly extinguished when Marlis realized she was being watched. The rage was social and political and occasionally personal, based on her hatred of obvious injustice, the crushing of the small and helpless by the steel wheels of American plutocracy. Just
Sample complete. Ready to continue?